So we're here today to talk about not 4 like the schedule said, but 5 ways to master the art of continuous improvement. So you get an extra one for your efforts. So just quick intro. I'm Melanie Macari, and I am a senior product marketer at Splunk. I've been here for about a year and a half, and before that I was with Nokia. So about a year and a half ago, I also moved to Boulder and kind of dove right into, I guess, becoming a Boulderite and did my first half Ironman in August, which was very difficult and very hot, but it was a really good accomplishment. And then other fun facts, I've seen a lot of not ordinary animals this week. Of course, we all met our friends on Monday, and then I was at Coit Tower in San Francisco last week and came face to face with a coyote. But he was very, very nice, I think, so we're all good. So let's get started, but before we do, Splunk makes me tell you that everything here you cannot hold me to, which I guess is a very good thing for me. So let's get into the gist of this. So essentially, we're here to cover a few main points. We'll start with a problem, of course, and that's essentially that faster delivery times just adds a lot of complexity and a lot of difficulty to your pipelines. And the solution we're here to argue is that continuous improvement and that feedback loop is a really wonderful way to address some problems. So we'll have 3 solutions here. The first is to solve with Splunk. It helps you gain critical insights into software delivery cycles. We can be victorious with VictorOps by making sure that you can visually correlate key incident information in real time. And then, of course, we perform with Puppet by leveraging automation for software discovery, management, and delivery. So let's start with the problem. Over the years, we've really all of us have experienced this rapid increase of delivery cycles from waterfall to agile, and now we're in a CI/CD world where things are compressed and it's really driven by customer demands for always-on services and our own business initiatives to meet those demands. So it results in tremendous complexity and a really increased pressure to take risks as well. So for instance, many of us may be testing in production, which is something we never would have done a few years ago. So with all of these moving parts, with code being deployed daily or even hourly, as we know it is, complication and downtime are just much more inevitable. And unknown unknowns are really increasing. And of course, downtime can be disastrous. Doesn't always have to be disastrous, but no one wants it. And so when we think about even a small scale incident, one that lasts 30 minutes, let's say, according to Gartner, we see that that's over $300,000 of business impact. So, I mean, we can think about what that might equate if you have a 2-hour incident. It's very impactful. And that is quantifiable. But if we start to think about the more subjective terms like brand impact, we can really think about our own reactions to when an application goes down or there's service degradation. How many of us have gone to social media to complain? I mean, I have. And it's really because it is very public, and therefore it tends to achieve a pretty fast response time in many cases. But unfortunately for us in the hot seat, it also kind of catches the attention of the board and C-levels who might insert themselves into the problem at a less ideal time. So there's a lot of layers there. And then, of course, all of this downtime, continuous kind of service degradation leads to customer churn because we're in a world where there are other options, and customers know that. So good news. Based on the Uptime Institute, 80% of service downtime is preventable. So let's talk about how, and we're arguing the best way to affect positive change is to do so incrementally. So we're going to go into the solution and talk about how Splunk, VictorOps, and Puppet combine to help teams focus on continuous improvement and reduce the firefight associated with downtime. Let's just do that. All right. So there are a ton of companies that have success stories in this realm, one of which is HP. And what they did was they increased their time spent developing new and innovative software by 700%. And that's 700 additional resources focusing on innovation and not on triage. And it really was not headcount. They didn't add any bodies to this. They changed incrementally and gave time back to the team. So they did this, of course, by making small changes. And that is what we mean by continuous improvement. It's an ongoing effort to improve processes by reducing waste, which can also quite often be time. So waste can be wasted time, or it can be by improving quality. So the idea of continuing improvement is not new. We've seen this in manufacturing for decades. And it's also, where we hear the Kaizen approach, which is essentially, it just illustrates that change does not have to be giant. It can be really small and much more impactful. So it's really just incremental changes that are more useful in the long run than large chunks. And also, as we know, if you're not focusing on something, it's not going to magically happen. So we really need to embed this into our business processes. And above all, continuous improvement requires data, it requires focus, it requires automation, and also action. So we'll discuss how Splunk provides the data needed to uncover inefficiencies. We'll talk about how VictorOps comes in to enable collaboration and faster remediation and data-driven post-incident reviews. And also how Puppet runs in parallel to automate the most redundant and terrible tasks so that you can focus on things that we all love to do most, innovate and not fix bugs. So we'll start with analysis and solving with Splunk. And how many of us use Splunk in the room? We've heard of it. Okay, so we have a fair number. For those of us who may not have, we really enable customers to make real-time decisions based on machine data. We use machine data to make it usable and valuable to everyone. And as we know, there are just tons of products creating machine data all over the place. And Splunk is a platform that can ingest gigabits all the way up to petabytes of information, no matter what you need. And it does it from one source or thousands of sources. So once data is in Splunk Enterprise, you can search, you can analyze, you can report, and you can also share insights on your data. And those insights can support a number of use cases across your entire organization. And for us, I think a lot of these tools might look very familiar to us. And these are all examples, of course, of machine data in our pipeline. And so we have development tools on the top and operations tools on the bottom. Any of these look familiar, like Jira? Any of us use Jira? For sure. Puppet, I'm assuming, is kind of up there in all of our minds. And the point here is that if you're not collecting it and you're not analyzing it, you cannot see where you are and you can't make a path forward for continuous improvement. And so we can really start to see where we have quality issues and where we can address some waste. I'm just gonna do that. And so all of this really is about delivering faster. And the first step there is to find delivery bottlenecks. And you can really use all of the data that we just showed to address waste, whether that be time wasted, wasted cycles, wasted code that's not being deployed, or maybe it's not being tested properly. And then we can, other wasted time might just simply look like devs that are waiting for builds to start, or QA to do manual rather than automated testing. And essentially, it's just anyone waiting for a handoff. That can be wasted time. And you really have to be able to measure these things and reduce them continuously. So to improve quality, you need to collect data from the dev building and testing, as well as your deploy and monitoring tools, so you have an accurate view of current quality and level of execution. So that'll help you make real-time decisions, reducing mean time to action and remediation. And of course, improving delivery velocity and app quality means that you can focus on the business impact. You can measure and analyze this app usage data, and then you can find issues maybe before your customer complains instead of after. Again, that brand impact. So let's look at 4 ways that Splunk specifically helps. The first is dev team analytics. So one thing we can do here is maybe see who's deploying code. Is it 1 or 2 people that are handling all of the weight? Is it perhaps a lot of code being deployed on the weekend, which might mean that they're a little bit overloaded? Or is it a time thing? Are people deploying code at the end of a sprint rather than at the start and leaving no room for QA? And the second is automated build tool data. And if we look at this, we can uncover where time is wasted waiting for build servers to build the code and test servers to spin up. Very specific example there. And also, oh good, wait, hold on. I had a MEB that I was gonna supply and then I didn't. It was gonna come up. So, yeah, so Splunk allows you to analyze and correlate data across multiple tools so you can see where you can move from manual to automated testing and find bugs faster. And so this area in particular illustrates how small changes can really, really have big payoffs. And so once we're ready to deploy code into production, there are many things we can do, but we'll first start talking about being victorious with VictorOps. And VictorOps is really your collaboration tool that comes in, and our entire ethos is to make on-call suck less. You may have seen our marketing around, and it's true. We really try to focus on the end user. We enter the scene to coordinate people around a problem once it's triggered. So VictorOps ingests alerts from monitoring tools like Splunk and a ton of others. And it looks at CI/CD tools, it ingests service desk tools, and also chat technology. So we have this collaborative space. And it takes over once the alert is fired and applies a set of rules that understands the severity of the event, takes a look at escalation policies associated with it, and then also at how that person on the right team wants to be notified. So if it's 3 a.m., you might want a phone call. If it's at 2 p.m., an email might suffice or a push notification. And so you can also integrate with Slack very easily for faster workflows. And then, of course, when the alert lands in the right hands instead of everyone's hands, you are better leveraging your IT resources and not kind of blasting everyone with this alert. And VictorOps has also, in this process, when it takes that alert in, appends context to it. So you have alerts, annotations, you have runbooks, metrics, all of these kinds of things to help you look at your app, dig in quickly, and understand the problem at hand. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is we are really leveraging machine data, machine learning in a very real way now. Sometimes when you're in a firefight and you know you cannot necessarily solve this entirely by yourself, but you don't know who to call, when you add a responder to the incident, we will actually suggest who might be helpful based on their previous actions in similar incidents. Okay, and so VictorOps benefits really boil down into a few main categories. And the first of which is a large reduction in mean time to acknowledgement and mean time to resolution. Because getting the right person on the job or the right people on the job is difficult if you're doing it manually, but very easy if you have a solution like VictorOps, because the alerts are automatically routed to the right person or people for the team or for the job. And it also adds a layer of accountability to this, because if you're getting an alert, you know it's meant for you. One company that really used this tool to their benefit was PSCU, which is the largest credit union in the States. And they went from a manual process of calling people down a spreadsheet to try to find someone who could actually help out to just automating the process. And they went down from 4 hours to 2 minutes. And if you don't have a solution, that's a very real time save that you could very much immediately put in place. And VictorOps also makes it easier to solve issues faster by appending data to the alerts, like I mentioned. And then, of course, easier collaboration in the app or via Slack really makes it a lot easier as well. So moving on to the service desk, how many of us use ServiceNow as our system of record? Yeah, I mean, most people do. And so ServiceNow, we have a wonderful integration with them as well, where many people, ServiceNow is very important. Operations teams use it to make sure that they have all the data they need in case of audit. It's a system of record, all of this. It's very important. But when you're in a firefight, you don't necessarily want to be moving to ServiceNow as a developer to update operations. So we have a bi-directional integration there where no matter where you're working, what your role is, you have context into what is happening. And really all of this together makes on-call suck less. It reduces isolation, you leverage tribal knowledge in the form of annotations and all of this, and it increases visibility for everyone so you don't do overwork. And potentially, of course, the most important part, the continuous improvement at the bottom, we do document every single step along the way in a post-incident review. So it is a report that is data-driven and collects all the data points in the incident lifecycle. So it allows you to look at everything without blaming someone. You can impart change, and it really takes the culture from, it wasn't me, to we're in this together and let's figure it out. And also just wonderful use case of Splunk and VictorOps together, since I know about half of you use Splunk. Another way to get all of this data for post-incident review is to pull it into a dashboard that we've built into Splunk again. So you can look at historical information, you can look at real-time downtime cost, you can look at the rate of unplanned work and how it's changing over the years. And you can also look at, really anything you want. Splunk is just a tool that is so malleable. So, of course, we're getting to Puppet, and we need to shift to show you how Splunk complements both, Puppet complements both Splunk and VictorOps. It really is a critical, crucial part of the puzzle. It allows teams to deploy faster and more thoughtfully by leveraging automation. So from simply infrastructure delivery to delivering infrastructure safely and at scale, Puppet lets you consistently manage your automation efforts and team workflows. So it's allowing you to automate your infrastructure, and that means you're not only eliminating the manual, error-prone, of course, parts of your job, but you get to focus on continually improving the business. And this is a very real example that happened in March, but Facebook went down for an entire day. And that was unfortunately based on human error because we make errors. So it was a server config that someone just messed up. So what if Puppet had been there and didn't cause that entire problem? And as we see these three solutions together, it's easy to see how Splunk, of course, gets you the data, VictorOps helps you respond faster and more collaboratively, and to complete the flow, we have the automated processes of Puppet. We'll just quickly bring it all together. Splunk thresholds are met, sends it directly to VictorOps, and the on-call expert that this alert has been directed to knows exactly what they need to do. They're at a soccer game, they're at dinner, you're getting back to that soccer game or dinner faster. And with Splunk, VictorOps, and the Puppet enterprise integration, you can actually modify that event to include a bolt task from Puppet, which allows you to, of course, codify your playbooks and your triage processes so you can take automatic action. So Puppet can do certain automation tasks like maybe terminating a runaway process. It can clear disk space. It can empty caches, all of these things. And that it really means that while VictorOps receives the alert from Splunk, Puppet is just kicking off to make all these things happen. And all you have to do then is go back to VictorOps, make sure that just validate that the correct action was taken, and then you can close out the ticket and go back to dinner. So we're coming to the end, but I do have just a quick before and after to show, really based on our customer conversations and industry information, the change you can affect by implementing these three tools. And first, this is a very complex incident lifecycle. It takes forever Overall, it just takes forever. There are manual processes, and just nothing is automated, and there's no visibility at the end. So response time is difficult because maybe Splunk has fired an alert and someone has to manually go through a spreadsheet, hopefully up to date, finally finds the right person. And when that person is called, they don't actually know what they're doing, and it wasn't the right person. So they're rerouting it multiple times. They're trying different things. They're triaging forever, really trying not to call someone else. And it's just not very smooth. But the problem is that this is also not documented, so there's no way to make any positive change in this situation. Of course, the sunshine rainbows story is really true. If you're going away from spreadsheets, you're saving a ton of time. So now you are automatically getting it to the right person within less than a minute as usual. And then since it's the right person, it's not being directed to a million other people. And so you drastically reduce the number of reroutes. Puppet is taking actions you didn't need to, so everything just happens a lot faster. So in the end, the business impact is very severe, and you're saving a ton of money as well as a lot of stress. And some key takeaways before I let you go are that, first of all, measure everything. Measure everything you can and correlate it. So in some cases, you might not be able to have the ability to make real-time correlations because often hindsight is 20/20. But you can't have that insight later if you don't have the data being collected. Second is analyze for waste and identify areas to improve quality. And you really just have to be able to do this. You have to be able to identify waste to change it. And then you can sniff out things that point back to a lack of productivity with development, testing, and how things are released. And third, we need to provide a process for post-incident reviews, whether it be in VictorOps or pulling that back into Splunk, that focuses on providing blameless but data-driven a review of the incident lifecycle. So we need to see what actions were taken, were they the right actions? Maybe we can update annotations, we can update these playbooks to make our on-call users be able to fix things faster, etc. And of course, automation is the single-handed best way to reduce time to remediation and achieve better scale. So most importantly is number 5. It's not about making giant fundamental shifts. It's just about keeping your eyes open, analyzing the data, collaborating and acting. Because as we've kind of heard in this entire session, change is best when implemented slowly and incrementally. Not slowly, but incrementally. So I think I'm letting you go a little early, but I also wanted to call your attention to Splunk Comp 2019, which I don't know if you've been to or heard of, but it's jam-packed with sessions and it's all really interesting stuff. We have a ton of VictorOps sessions, as well as some really cool ITSI and VictorOps and Phantom kind of information going on. And so Puppet's also there. I'm happy to take questions after the session if anyone has any kind of comments or anything at all.
Great, thanks, Melanie.
Thank you.
I know the voice from the back.